Today we are going to dive in to exactly one thing you need to make sure 2023 is your best year yet. And I put in parentheses, even if you're worried about the economy, because I feel like I'm not super into like buying into the issue or panic around that. I don't plan on talking about that a super lot unless that's like, obviously something that's necessary. But the reason I put that is because I feel like the thing I'm about to talk about is the kind of thing that helps you ride out challenging times. And so that's really why I wanted to make note of that, because I wanted it to be like, hey, this is not just a thing that helps you when things are good. This is a thing that helps you when things are challenging because it grounds you into yourself and gives you kind of like your own personal power there. So just a note of why I said that this is not going to be like a recession conversation by any means, but it's just this idea of like, there is something that can help you feel confident in riding out tough times in business if they come, and that's what we're going to talk about. So here's the first thing. I feel like what happens so often in our space that I kind of just want to like start by naming is that what we without meaning to or without intentionally doing is we kind of just like outsource our power to strangers on the internet. And so what I mean by that is we listen to strangers on the internet tell us what we need to do in our business, what we should be doing, what we're missing, all of that kind of stuff. And what I really want to say today is that that is the hardest way to run a business. And the thing that is going to make 2023 your best year and the subsequent years all great as well is knowing how to solve the right problem for your business, knowing what's working and what's not, learning from your own business and finding ways to do that. I'm going to give you very specific takeaways on that today. So I know that this is just kind of like general, but I promise we'll get into more specifics. But knowing those things in your own business and not outsourcing that power to someone else will absolutely change the game because you're actually solving for what's happening within your business. The biggest issue in our industry by far is that people are solving problems they don't have, and they're spending lots of money, time, and energy on problems they absolutely do not fucking have. And they're spinning in circles, wondering why it's not working, why it's not happening in the way they want it to. And like, it's what's keeping so many people in our industry stuck, right? Michelle said, yes, lots of power or outsourcing. And to be fair, so much marketing is, I missed that. And so much marketing is based on that. Hey, Elisa, so true. That's why I like your space so much, because you're always pointing things back to us and inviting us to be discerning. Oh, thank you, Michelle. Yes. Nevika said 1,000%. Hey, Allison. Right. So I think what Michelle was saying is most marketing, it's marketing to like, hey, this is the problem you have. And here's how, I'm going to solve it. So it makes sense that it's easy to get stuck in that. And this is not in any way, shape, or form meant to like shame you if you have found yourself in that. It's really to say it's kind of not your fault. It's kind of in many ways how our industry has gotten built, right? So this is not something that I want you to like walk away making yourself wrong for. It's just something I want you to have awareness around, to be like, oh, duh, like I bought that thing last year and I didn't even like know if that was a problem. It's just like a thing I bought or whatever, right? Like, or I got convinced that it was a problem and turns out once I did, it wasn't even a problem. And so that's helpful to know, right? I have done that in my own business. So this is not, everyone has done that in their own business at some point. So this is not to make that wrong, but to just say like, let's open our eyes to this and have awareness around this. Hey, Sarah, good to see you. Oh, you too, Diane, good to see you. So what I really want you to challenge yourself on is like, what does it look like for 2023 to be the year that you learn from your own business? What I always say is like, your business will teach you more than other people ever will. And I'm not saying there is not a place for targeted support. There is a place for that all day, every day. But if you're not getting support that solves the right problem, like that's when it feels like you're getting further and further away from your goal, but sometimes working harder and harder. And that's what I really feel like we have to, or we have an opportunity to challenge ourselves not to do this year, no matter how good the marketing to do that is, right? Elisa said, fun fact, I'm going through Happy Magic prompts in Q1 to support me in staying focused on my goal and check in with me and my intuition daily. Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy, Elisa. I'm going to tell Sarah that too, because that will make her so happy as well. That's super cool. I love that. I still use Happy Thoughts prompts myself quite often. So I love that you're doing that. Or Happy Magic prompts, sorry. I love that you're doing that. So, but like what you're saying is so important. Like, how am I making the time to like check in with myself and my own gut and business, right? Let's see. You missed the Happy Magic emails. Michelle said, yes, I love the idea of looking inside ourselves and being like, okay, what support do I want, need, and dreaming it up that way, then going to find it rather than looking all over the internet to see what pops up, because that's how we end up down a rabbit hole. Amen. Michelle, so good. It'd be such a great exercise to do an audit of everything we purchased last year for our business and think about why we bought it, if we used it, and why or why not to reflect on this. Oh, damn. Never go with the hard hitting insight and inquiry. I think that would be an amazing practice. Gosh, like what a beautiful gift that would be. And like, I think why we shy away from doing practices like that, which I think, you know, again, is just genius. And I love that you brought that, is because we feel like we're going to make ourselves wrong or bad for it. And I think it would be so cool, again, to almost like approach it with like, hey, like, I don't have to be wrong or bad or feel shame here, but I get to learn from this. And I think that this is where the industry kind of gets people sometimes, is we don't do that because we don't want to feel wrong or bad or shameful, but we end up then feeling kind of like wrong or bad or shameful enough to like buy the next thing to solve the next problem. And so kind of letting go of some of that and being like, if this was just for learning and I wasn't going to beat myself up and I wasn't going to make myself wrong here, what do I need to know? Allison said, what is that? Oh, Happy Magic is a journaling course that my best friend Sarah and I used to have. It's discontinued. We don't sell it anymore, but many people still have like all the emails and prompts from it. So that's what that is. I'm so glad. Michelle said, I know if I did this, I would be like, what the heck was I doing? Although I've definitely learned so much from each of those experiences, and I'm using that to be much more intentional this year. Yes, exactly. That's it, right? It's like, can you see, like, because you probably got something from all of them. Like, even if like the learning was like, oh, I wouldn't buy that again because of this, like, that's probably still like a really valuable place to spend your money. I know some of the best investments I have made in my business taught me what I wouldn't do or didn't need. And like, it can feel like a lot of money on that, but like they can still be really, really valuable. Thank you, Diane. Best investment, value centered sales. So good. I'm so glad that was helpful. So looking at your own business. So the other reason, before we get into specifics, the other reason I want to say on this, I actually like just had this conversation with a client. So I think it would be really helpful to share. But I was talking to her about how, you know, the type of advice I give to different clients at different times is almost entirely contradictory. Not because I like don't have a stance or that I like, you know, am, you know, not being kind of like truthful with clients or whatever, but it's because they have contradictory needs, right? So this client in particular, one of her biggest struggles is like over responsibility. She takes responsibility for like everyone and everything. She is so self-responsible, but she's taken that to a degree that's like kind of not serving her. And so we like really have to look at that. But I was like literally giving another client directly opposite feedback like 2 days before that conversation and being like, hey, like, you know, she brought a specific situation to me and I was kind of like saying, like, what would it look like to be self-responsible here? Like, what would it look like to take full ownership, full responsibility here and step into that? Like, what would that be for you? And I think it would be amazing and like help her grow tremendously. And so I think what happens in the online space is we hear one thing and it gets presented in a way of like, this is always how it is. And then we go lean into that, right? So like this client keeps hearing like, be self-responsible, be self-responsible. And so she's trying to do that so much that she's like made herself insane. But it's like, because that advice did not apply to her. Do you know what I mean? So I think that we just have to be like, what our opportunity is to get better and better at figuring out what our problems are, solving for them, and actually knowing what those are, and then knowing that the investments we're making directly help us solve for that. If they're not directly helping us solve for that, it is very likely we're going to end up worse off, not better off, right? Allison says, I'm taking a break from having a biz coach. I think that's great. Sometimes we need that. And yeah, Michelle said the contradictory thing makes sense because it's dependent on each individual human, 100%. The issue is that we often don't stop to figure out what that is for ourselves. And that's where we get stuck, right? And that's why no matter, like, that's why the economy thing is something I put on here, because it's like, if you can keep identifying what problem to solve in your business and you have built the self-trust and evidence that you will show up, figure that out, and adjust accordingly, then the economy is just another piece of that, right? That's all it is. Like, it's just another time where like something shifted and you have to learn from what's happening in your business based on that and then make a shift. But the reason I don't particularly worry about that is because I'm like, well, I just trust myself to like look at what's happening, know what that means, address it, make a shift, and move on. So it's easy not to freak out about that. I think it freaks people out significantly when they're like, but I won't know what to do, right? And they don't have that internal trust of like, I know how to solve for my own problems. It feels like it's like out here, right? It's like, but who will I listen to around that and what will happen, instead of like, oh, well, like I would just look at my numbers in my business and decide what was going on and what had changed from that and make pivots as necessary, right? Yes, problem definition is critical to solving our problems. Absolutely. Hey, Shari. I feel like taking a break has had me be more self-reliant and self-confident. I think that's amazing, Allison. Annie said one size doesn't fit all, and that's something our industry really struggles with, especially for those new in business. I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And I think that we don't give people a lot of resources to figure that out for themselves. I feel like in many ways, that is just not something that gets offered in our industry that much. I was actually doing a couple clip-ins for literally this morning. And one of the things I was saying is like, we were talking about something Sabrina's adding into her like content marketing plan this year. And I was saying like, the takeaway from this is not go add these things because Sabrina's adding these things. The takeaway from this is here's how we decided for her to add those things, right? But I feel like in 90% of our world and realm, we're just not sharing or giving tools about how to figure that out within your own business. And I think that gets really complicated because it's like, even if I knew that that's maybe what I should do, where would I find that and how would I figure that out, right? Hey, Sarah, so true, need to work on this trust. Yes, it's so valuable. So like, honestly, that's like one of the reasons I decided to partner with Jen in Dateable, because to me, data is like the one thing that will just tell you with complete neutrality what's working and what's not working in your business. Like, and I'm constantly saying to people, like, learn more from your business than you do from other people. And everyone will be like, but how? And so that's what made me say yes to Dateable, because I was like, well, this is the how, and I need to start teaching that. And I want to be a voice for that and an advocate for that. And I think it's going to take a while for that to catch on in our space around like how fucking important it is to be able to like garner that information quickly from your own business. But like, I'm here for that wait, and I will talk about it all the time until that catches on, because it's like, this is where our power comes from, is being able to go, oh, this is what my business is saying. So who the fuck cares what this reel said or what this other coach said is working for her? I literally can know what's working in my business, right? Oh, you're loving this season with Sabrina. That's awesome, Annie. Thank you so much. Isn't that what coaching is though? LOL. Yeah, it's right. Sorry, so good. Elisa said it's all about nuance. I feel like we definitely lack nuanced conversations and see a lot of do this, you need this, blah, blah. Oh my gosh, Elisa, it's so funny that you use that word. I just got like so on a roll this morning, and I wrote like this set. I'll obviously share it with you guys here when we put it out, but I just wrote this set of like part 1, part 2, part 3 of this thing. And I called it like the nuance we're constantly missing in the coaching industry. And I think I put 9 things on it, which is why I had to divide it into 3 parts. But it's like, yes, 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 yes. And like Shari's saying, great coaching should reflect you and point out that nuance. But so often it's just not happening in our industry. And that's why we get so confused. Oh, thank you, Nevika. So where was I? Oh yeah. So that's why data is so valuable, because it can literally show you. I'll give you guys an example. We obviously obviously use dashboards all the time. Well, in Analytical, but also Dateable. And something that happened in Dateable last month when we launched is, I can't remember the like exact number, so I'm going to give you like, you know, like an estimate, but I remember they were in this range. But I remember looking at the dashboard one day, and it was like 500 people had visited the sales page. Again, I think maybe like plus or minus 60. I can't remember, but it was like around there. 500 had visited the sales page. 100 people had added to cart. So like a fifth of people that visited the sales page added to cart. But wait, let me think. Yep, 100 people, but only 35, I think, of those had actually purchased and checked out. 30 maybe, I can't remember at the exact time. I know that's not important, but you guys know I always want to give you like the truest true information. But anyway, it was like 500, 130. So that meant like over 70 people had added it to their cart and didn't purchase. And that was so fucking useful for me to know, because I made quite a few small tweaks and adjustments based on that I would have never thought of or known to make had I not had that. And if I had been in the space or whatever, just like listening to stuff, it would have like, that wouldn't have been something somebody told me. Do you know what I mean? Like that wouldn't have become clear about like watching someone else's live stream or whatever. What became clear is by looking at our own data, having a dashboard that we could look at every day and be like, oh, this is what's going on. That's so interesting. Why don't we take some action off of that? It doesn't have to be that complicated if you don't want it to be. I have other things I'm going to give you today to look at as well. But, you know, at a certain point, it is really useful to have a very quick way to see what's actually going on in my own business, so I can be a filter for that. Because the problem wasn't, do we have enough people coming to the sales page, right? That just wasn't the problem at all. The problem even wasn't, do we have enough interest and enough people adding it to cart? There was a totally different problem. Now, I could have spun my wheels for the entire month being like, we need more people, we need more people, we need more people. We didn't. That wasn't the issue. So just a reminder that like taking that moment to learn something from your own business and to be willing to kind of like study that, is just everything. And, you know, I think is the thing that we often shy away from, because it feels like, well, what will I even do with that information? Or will I know what to do? You know, it's kind of easier in a sense to have someone that seems like they know it all just be like, here's what's wrong, you have to fix it, and you have to do this. Like, I think there's a part of us, especially when we're newer to entrepreneurship and aren't kind of used to being in that CEO role, are like, I would rather not. But it's also how we often overspend, overinvest, and feel behind. So just a reminder of those two things. So excited to dive into data. My nervous system loves you. Oh, that's so good, Diane. Thank you. That makes me so happy. Oh yeah, Shari said such a beautiful compliment. That's made my heart melt for you. Yes, I will take all the nervous system love. Thank you. But right, that's totally what it's about, is kind of being able to just be like, oh, it's it could be this simple. It could be this easy. I could just look at this and feel totally certain and clear and clean and regulated because I can just see what's happening here, right? So like when I saw, oh, that's what's happening with Dateable this month, it was so easy and simple to be like, oh, okay, I can just make changes. Like nothing about it felt personal. Nothing about it felt like intense or like reactive or whatever. It was just like, oh, duh, right? Where if not, you could see how I could very intensely be like, oh my God, we need more people. What's going on? People aren't buying. Maybe people aren't as interested in this as I thought they would be. Spin, 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 right? I was literally not able to do that because I could be like, oh, this is just what's wrong. Interesting, easy. Okay, so I really, really want to encourage you to look at data. Obviously, I'm a big believer in our program Measure and Maximize, but I like by no means do you have to go by that. I think it's like really helpful to have the dashboards, but like you can look at data in your own business in lots of ways before you ever like have to buy that. You can download our metrics generator. You can go look at really small things. Like one thing that I've had a bunch of clients do recently that everybody kind of like eye rolls me for, but is actually really helpful, which I'm going to like challenge y'all to do today or sometime, is write down where your last 10 clients came from. Like just go back, look at the last 10 people that bought from you, figure out where they came from. Right? Like obviously data and dashboards can tell you traffic source pretty easily, but like you could also just figure that out from your last 10 clients, write that down and see what you learn from that. It's kind of funny how most of us are probably like, gosh, I haven't done that, but I've bought this thing and invested in this thing and done this thing, but I haven't even been like, where did my last 10 sales come from? Right? Isn't that crazy? Isn't it also crazy that like we're investing in all these things that don't ask us that? Like it blows my mind when I really step back and think about that for a second. Like, hello, this is so important. But it will take, very little time, but will be an absolute game changer to be like, yep, here's where they came from. Here's what's happening. Here's what's working. Here's what's not, right? Yes, exactly, Navika. Such a simple and eye-opening exercise. Sorry, says especially if you've got hybrid non-island sources. Exactly, right? Because that makes it even more like confusing in a sense, because all the online people will be telling you to do a certain thing, but you're also getting non-online clients. And it can really feel like a soupy mess instead of like just being able to be like, oh, here's where they came from. Here's what's working. Amazing. How do I capitalize on that? One of my clients recently did this and she was kind of being like, I really think I should do this one thing. I really think I should do this one thing. And I was like, well, let's write down where your last 10 clients came from before we do that. And she did it. And she was like, oh, shit, nothing about doing this thing makes sense. And it was like so helpful to be like, yeah, no, it doesn't make any sense. But the pull of marketing in our space is sometimes so real and so strong and so, I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking for, but it's almost like so persuasive that like it's really hard to let that go in favor of just being like, well, or I could just look at this. But I really want to encourage you guys on that because it's like where that pull stops. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like that intensity of like a launch or being really pulled into someone's space and feeling like I have to hire them, I have to get that thing, I have to know how to do this thing. That intensity comes to like a lull when you can see like, oh, actually, when I look at this stuff, nothing about that makes sense. Like, so it's kind of your way to take back your power where then you could still buy something if you wanted, but it's not from that heightened fight or flight. Maybe this will be the thing that changes everything intensity that actually doesn't serve us. It's from that really grounded place. I'm like laughing at what Shari said. I'm going to read them in a second. But it's from that really grounded place of just like, yeah, this just makes sense, right? FOMO inducing, preying on your insecurities. Yes, all of the above. It is. It really is, right? Like, it's so funny because it's like saying you have a secret is like the oldest marketing trick in the book. You know what I mean? Like, it's like it's almost taking the easy path on marketing to a certain extent. It's like, wait, there's like no easier marketing trick than just telling someone you have a secret and saying a bunch of words that mean nothing that make people feel like you have a secret. I feel like that's like the trendy thing right now in our industry, is like to say so much that you say nothing, but people feel like they should know what you're saying. And so they buy. Like, no, this is where we take our power back. Know what's working in your business. So that's one thing I would. So number one is look at your data, whether that's through dashboards and having like really easy ways to do that, whether that's just looking at a couple small pieces of data that our metrics generator tells you to look at that. Two, figure out where your last 10 clients came from, write it down, know it, get familiar with it, figure out what's working. I almost guarantee you there will be a theme or a trend there that you can capitalize on. Number three, if you have coaching support, I would directly ask your coach, what do you think as my coach is the biggest problem for me to solve right now? Oh, wait, I want to see what you guys are saying. Did this client exercise? And it's really interesting to see that when I was super active on TikTok in the height of the pandemic, even though I was also active on IG, that TikTok is where most of my clients come from. Most of my recent clients have come from IG. Yes, that was so helpful. And then you can even drill down into that, Michelle, which obviously we did, right? But it's like, what were they coming from? What was the specifics? What was that about, right? Kristen, we painted them. No, I'm actually in my office. I just couldn't do the dark ones anymore. Shari said, oh my God, these ads saying every strategy just doesn't work, but download our system. That means you'll never have a problem again. I just can't. There's this like really sick part of me that wants to like troll all of those and be like, this is not a thing. I won't, don't worry. I don't have a burner account, but if I did, that's what I would spend my time doing. Allison said Facebook algorithms don't seem to be my friend, which, listen, I think algorithms change and move, but I think a great thing to think about there, Allison, is like, what is working? That's something I really encourage my clients on, is like, it's not like we never look at what's not working and like play with that, but it's actually easier sometimes to be like, here's what's actually working. Let me maximize that before I even solve the other issues. Such a good exercise for me. It's definitely community and connections, right? So it's like so good to just be like, oh, okay, well, if I just spent my year fostering community and connections, I'd probably get exactly what I wanted in my business. And then I'm only going to invest in and hire things that help me do more of that. Not that you could never add something else to your repertoire, but for most of us that are trying to grow, just being like, I know a couple things that work and I'm like doubling down on those until I've like exhausted every opportunity there is really where it's typically best. I did once or twice, but can't keep up. I'm sorry, I feel that deeply. A Lacey burner account just made me laugh out loud. Oh my gosh, it's like my my like secret, shameful, shadowy dream to be like, that's what I spent my day doing. No, I'm kidding. It's because I post narratives that they don't like fact check or bullshit. Oh, interesting. So yeah, I mean, like you might know that and you might be like, okay, well, that's not even a problem I want to solve, but here's what else is working and I'm going to go double down and focus on that. Right. So anyway, I think what I was saying before is, ask your coach. Like if you have a coach, don't hesitate to just be like, hey, what do you think is my biggest problem to solve right now? And if y'all both aren't sure, like, hey, can we have a session where we focus on that really specifically and really clearly? I think that that is a beautiful thing to like invite into your coaching container. I feel like, sometimes we can feel sort of like weird asking for the spotlight to be put on us in that way. But I think just like bringing that as a coaching request can be really, really helpful. And obviously I'm not saying everyone has to have a coach, but if you do, make sure that like that's clear and you're using it for that. What is my biggest problem to solve? Do we feel clear on that? And then is all of the stuff I'm doing this year aligned to that, right? And then also ask yourself, like if you took 30 minutes to journal on that and get real with yourself and get clear there, what do you really feel like is your biggest problem to solve in business right now? Can you answer that completely and fully? And if you can, amazing, make sure your plan aligns to that. And if you can't, that's the work to do, right? I had a VIP day with a client this weekend, which was super, super fun. And it was so helpful, I think, because in in some regards, like she kind of almost doesn't have the same problem to solve that she has for a while. Her business has grown and evolved a lot. And she kind of has this totally new problem to solve that means a lot of her daily actions look really, really, really different than they have before. In many ways, they look the same, but not totally. Like it actually looks pretty different than what she's used to like doing and focusing on. But it was so helpful that we had this kind of North Star to be like, here's the one goal and the one problem to solve. And then like, how does everything align to that? And it was like, oh, actually a lot needs to shift. Cool. But it's okay to shift it because it makes so much sense because her business has grown and evolved significantly. So just a reminder that like having that is really, really, really important. Having that North Star. So weird. Sorry. Am I still here? Yes. Okay. It said my Zoom account was trying to sign in on another device, which is weird. Shari said, I love helping clients look at this because I think it's so fucking empowering to not feel like you have to fix so many things at once. Yes. Which is why I love your stuff because I find it tough to do on myself at times. Exactly. Which is why I'm like, listen, ask yourself, but also if you have coaching, bring it to that because it is really hard to do with yourself. Sometimes I personally find it so much easier to do, for my clients and myself even. So like, by all means, ask that first. Such an existential question. Am I still here? Oh my God. So funny, Michelle. I'm like, where am I? Am I still here? So yes, ask your coach, ask yourself, look at your data, look at where your last 10 clients came from. I mean, obviously there are a million other iterations of that we could go into, but like, that's really, really what I want you to focus on. And what I want you to keep in mind is 1000% hands down, knowing your problem, knowing how you'll keep figuring that out, which is again, why I love data. Cause it's like, this is how we'll keep figuring that out. Ongoingly over and over again, know your problem, know how you'll figure it out. Everything changes. Like it's almost like the online space gets to be fun then because no one has so much power over you then. When you don't actually know what your problem is or how to solve it, almost all marketing in the online space has power over you. Like I think so often when this is a very big generalization. So this is not to say this is true across the board, but I just want to share this part. But so often when I hear people say that they find social media really difficult or toxic, or like they find it really hard to like be in a Facebook group or something like that, I'm literally like 9 times out of 10, like I bet it's because you do not feel like you know what is actually working and not working and what problem you have to solve in your business right now. And it's super fucking triggering to be in those spaces. And it feels super intense because it feels like everyone has an answer that you don't. It gets so easy to be in those spaces when you're like, oh, that's cool that she's doing that, but that's not for me, or that's so interesting. I'll have to remember that for if that ever is a thing I'm focused on. Again, very vast generalization. There could be a million other reasons that people are triggered, but I really do think that's one of the biggest ones. So this is kind of about like, hey, if I actually know my shit, it's so safe and normal and easy to be in so many of these spaces and conversation. If I actually don't know that in my own business, it feels wildly challenging because it keeps pointing out to me what I don't know or what else I'm missing, even though maybe I'm not missing anything, right? So just remember that. And again, this is where your power comes in with stuff like, what if the economy shifts or whatever? I'm like, so clear that I would figure out what that problem is and then solve that. You know, I'm not saying it's like always fun or easy if things change drastically, but I actually do think that this is going to be a year where things change really drastically in the online space. Love how it creates safety. I feel that. Yes. Shari said my best hack is to reduce consumption of content when I'm in a phase of solving or tender feeling in my own business. Amen. Such a gift to give yourself. But I do feel like this is going to be a year of really big shifts and changes in the online space. I think that, you know, for a variety of reasons, I think some of this was coming for a long time. I think some of it is what people are sort of waking up to. I think some of it is going to be economic things that are happening. And I also think even some stuff like, not to derail this whole conversation, but some stuff that's even like going on with like the Chat GPT stuff. I don't know how much you guys have gotten into. what it can do, but it is insane what it can do. It is actually like full stop insanity. I think Jen, my business partner in Dateable, Jen Graham, actually put like a ChatGPT video in this group. So if anybody wants to like look at that, but I think that is going to make such a fucking impact on our industry. Elisa said, currently sick in bed watching your live stream is my only business activity today, plus responding to a couple of clients' priorities. Such a great conversation. Oh my gosh, you made my day. That's so sweet. Thank you. I have my newsfeed eradicators on currently. So helpful. Genius. Jess said, OMG, yes. I've heard of ChatGPT, but I have no idea what it is. I would love to hear your thoughts on ChatGPT. I mean, honestly, I don't have, well, I don't know. I don't, how shall I say? Yes, feel better soon. Sorry, I didn't say that, Elisa. Yes, we hope you feel better soon. I'm an asshole. Thank you, Madonna, for being like, hi, we hope you feel better. So, I mean, I don't have what like very, very broad thoughts in terms of like what this means for everything, but I think what it means for our industry is huge. I think that is going to change like what kind of content is popular. I think it's going to change how people create. I think it's going to change how we consume content. Like, I think there's so much coming from that. I probably will have Jen maybe come on and we can do a whole thing. Jen is, I just can't wait for y'all to know her more. She's so fascinating. She's like literally the smartest person I know. And she's been on a ChatGPT, like very big, deep dive. I think actually we're going to add, a bit of it into Measure and Maximize, in fact. But anyway, I think that it's going to change things dramatically. And so what I mean about that is like, we have so many things on the horizon that I think are going to be shifting our industry. And if you don't have this solid ground of being like, I know what's going on with my business, I know what's happening, I know how to figure out my problem, I know how to solve it, you are going to feel like you're on such shaky ground. I feel like every single thing that comes down the pike like that is going to feel like really destabilizing. This is where you get your sanity. This is where you get your groundedness. This is where you get your stability. Know your problem, know how to extract information and data from your own business, learn from your own business, right? Sorry, Lisa. What is this devilish thing that is going to have so much influence? Yes, you get me. My husband makes fun of me because I'm always revisiting and curating my feed followers every few months. I think that's genius. Like, I think that every person on the planet should do that. It's like an AI thing, Michelle, that, I mean, you can like literally ask anything to. I've just been like fucking around with it for a little while just for fun. Like, you can, like, I put my podcast show notes in and I said to it, write these more persuasively, like, and it will. Slash, I also asked it yesterday, like, you can just use it for a million things. That's an example in business. Another example is I asked it yesterday to write a meal plan and grocery list for baby-led weaning for a 9-month-old, because I didn't want to like think of meals for Bennett for that week. And it did. So anyway, it just does like all the things. It's a bearded guy in the back room who knows everything, basically. Yeah. So Jen, the way she describes it that I think is really helpful is she basically says, treat it like you're talking to a genius, ask it anything you want. Sometimes you have to like engage with it and have like ask multiple questions to get the exact thing that you want, but it's really interesting. So anyway, what you can see from like the podcast show note thing that I just said as an example, like that could change our industry dramatically, right? But that can be good if you feel like you know how to use this stuff in your own business. It can be terrifying if you feel like you have no idea how to like find the problems, solve for them, find the data, etc. So this is what I want you to take away from this is like, things are coming, changes are coming, because that's always how it is. And that's always how business is going to be. And that doesn't have to be bad. It gets to be something that's exciting if you feel grounded and solid in figuring out what that is for your business, right? You can teach it to say things in a different way. So cool. Yes, exactly. There's so much, like so much. That's like a whole deep dive that I feel like I am not particularly qualified at this moment to teach by any means. But yeah, you can ask it to like pretty much do anything. you can like put a post in and say, write this in a different way. You could say like, here's this promotional post, write me 3 more like it. I mean, there's so many things, right? There's also so many problems associated with that and IP and whatever that are not worth talking about now, but it's insane. It's totally insane. So anyway, you can just get like, wow, like shit could change so quickly and so rapidly potentially. And do I feel equipped to handle that? Do I feel like, does it learn from you when you ask questions? Yes. Yes. So yeah, I feel like it's just, where is your grounding? What keeps you on solid footing? And if I look at my own business, the thing that always keeps me on solid footing is that I just always know like what's going on in my business and what the challenge is and what the problem is to solve. Like, for example, I'll just share my own for this year. So you guys know we've had the wait list for a really long time. Like we haven't like, had a need to focus on really much else. And I've obviously had a fucking hell of a year last year, so I wasn't too worried about it then. But what our only problem that we're going to solve this year is focusing on list growth, because our community in terms of like Facebook groups, socials, all of that kind of stuff, a number of podcast listens and downloads, all of those things that I can like look at and track is really, really good. But when you hold that up to how many people I have on my email list, like we've just slacked considerably in growing our email list, which makes sense. I mean, we haven't tried to do that for a few years, honestly, which sounds silly, but it just wasn't a problem for us to solve then. But now like the chasm is wide and it really makes sense for us to start going, okay, like we have a lot of people following and listening to us in a lot of places. Like, what are we doing to make sure that they're on our list and in our atmosphere in that way? So that's like the only problem we're solving this year. May I change that at some point or double down on one other thing too, if that problem shifts or changes or becomes really obvious in another way? Of course, this isn't like a hard and fast thing that I'm not able to learn from my business and shift with, but like that makes my year so easy. That makes my tasks so easy. Like I know the first task I have of this year is I'm running a free masterclass at the beginning of February. Amazing. That's going to grow my list. That helps me solve that problem. But it wasn't like throwing spaghetti at the wall to just be like, I guess I'll do a masterclass this year. It was like, hey, we have this one very specific problem in our business. Here's a way that I can start solving it. Here are the steps I'm going to take toward that. I mean, it's like really simple and it's just not fucking charged, right? I'm not like, oh my God, why don't people want to be on our list? What's going on? Da, 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 da. I'm like, it just makes sense. We haven't really asked them to be. We haven't been focusing on that. Now we have a little bit of a gap here that we need to solve. Amazing. I can just go do that without a lot of intensity or ego around it. Does that make sense? And so then if something else happens this year and that changes, great, I will go do that. So that is pretty much that. I'm sure I have completely derailed this and everybody is on ChatGPT at this exact moment and no longer listening to me, which I totally get and appreciate. Go wild. It's so wild and fun. Yes, within the same window. Exactly. It's so fun. But changes are coming. Being grounded in yourself, knowing the problem to solve, knowing how to find that in your business is literally everything. Will that masterclass be on the partnership model? You don't have to answer this. I'm just excited. It actually will be, Devika. Yes, I literally think it's called the partnership model masterclass. I can't remember what I named it. It's at Capacity. We're still all here listening. Oh, funny. Sometimes if you just refresh, Michelle, it at least that's what happens for me. If you just refresh, it'll like open up. Yeah, good. Yeah. So the one in February will be on the partnership model and just like telling you everything I know about that. But yeah, like so good, right? And also what's so interesting too that I just want to name on that note is, you know how like all the rage right now is to do paid master classes. So I could have been like, oh, I should do a master class on the partnership model and make it paid, which would be fine. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But that's not my problem to solve, right? So like, I don't need to make an extra whatever. What I need is to grow my list. And so it only makes sense to do it for free, but you can see how like knowing the thing guides every decision and makes it's like this to make decisions. Like if Megan's like, oh, okay, do you want to do it free or paid? I'm like, free. It's the only thing that makes sense based on the problem we're solving, right? Like it's so fucking easy then. I just cannot stress this enough. So cool, excited for that. Amazing. I'm not sure what you're asking, Allison. How would speak to visibility lives versus posts? Allison, feel free to ask that a slightly different way. I'm assuming you're talking about something that I said and I just like missing the context there. Such a great example of solving the right problem. Yeah. So like, that's just an example of like, this is how easy it is to make decisions in your business when you actually know the right problem to solve and can like act from that point. It's also an example of like why data really matters, to be able to like look at all the data across the board and be like, oh, this is a gap. This is a problem. Like that's so helpful to know, because I wouldn't otherwise know that. You know what I mean? I wouldn't just be like, oh, it should be a list growth year. Like I actually need to look at all of these numbers and see what makes sense there. So that is that. I will let you guys know when we have the partnership model masterclass out, but we'll run it, I think, the very, very beginning of February. If you guys have questions for me on Measure and Maximize or data or anything like that, obviously feel free to let me know that. If you want more on the ChatGPT thing, I'm pretty sure Jen put a video in here. If she didn't, I will ask her to, because she is like our resident queen of that right now. And otherwise, if you commented, remember you are entered to win a $100 gift card. So many coaches say it's always about going live. If you're not, then your visibility suffers. I don't think that's true, Allison. I mean, I personally think I really like going live because it creates like a lot of community and connection, but I don't think that's true. Yes, strategy is actually so easy when we aren't charged around it. Amen, Lisa. So true. Okay, beautiful guys. I hope that you have an amazing, amazing week. I look forward to seeing you all next week. It's going to be a fun one. Megan's coming. And then we'll share the partnership masterclass when it comes out. All right. Love y'all. Bye.